Today, I'll be talking about whether states should allow more gambling. For the last 5 years, I've been able to be fortunate enough to play fantasy football with my friends, and it's been a great time. It seems like every year we end up putting up more money than we did the previous year, and I've actually been fortunate enough to win one time, and I had a great time doing it and made the games much more fun. And I make this point out to say that most people participate in some form of gambling in their lives, whether that was through playing cards with your family or, just making stupid bets with your friends. And although there are many social hazards associated with gambling, states should increase the legislation and regulation of gambling to establish, greater standards of ethical and safety practices and create a wholesome field for social interaction and connection and entertainment while using the increased state profits to benefit the state's residents. Everyone should have the freedom to gamble in a controlled and regulated environment, while, also helping states with their profits and helping its residences. I have done a lot of research on the topic, and I've participated in various avenues of betting and gambling, so I do feel qualified today to talk about that. Legalizing gambling leads to an increase in revenue for the states, but it also higher ethical safety practices and a way for people to interact and connect with one another. First I'll be explaining the benefits of gambling. To start, states should allow more gambling and increase government regulation on it. The legalization and regulation of gambling would bring in more money for the state government. This money could then be used for different government programs that actually help its residences. People are already gambling, and this increase in government regulation could lead to the profits actually going to help the state rather than going into the hands of the black market, which wouldn't actually help the state. According to Mark Wolf in 2019, he mentions that states should be using the potential chance to legalize sports betting to talk about the legal and financial aspects of sports betting as an opportunity. Secondly, greater legislation and regulation by the state government would allow for higher ethical and safety standards to be established and enforced through, educational gambling classes and mandatory money up front. That way you don't lose a lot of your income. Finally, the state legislation and regulation would provide a meaningful field of social interaction and entertainment. It's a great way for people to gather and connect, whether that's in person at a casino, someone's house, playing Texas Hold'em, or, virtually playing like fantasy football like I did with my friends. According to the Fantasy Football Sports and Gambling Association in 2019, over 46 million people played fantasy football this past year. But, in considering such a complex subject like the legalization of gambling, is also important to examine the potential consequences of this greater legislation. While I believe that there are major benefits to the greater legalization of gambling, there are also some potential dangers and drawbacks that I would like to pay attention to today. One danger would be that it actually leads to a greater frequency of gambling, and this could lead to irresponsible behavior and destructiveness, such as, risking large sums of money that are needed for practical and everyday necessities and items. In a study done in 2020, many scientists highlight that those results add to a growing body of evidence that users with greater gambling symptoms spend more than those without such symptoms. While this is this could be a danger, careful government regulation, which could be about regulating the amounts someone could put forward based on their income, requiring betting money to be put up front, or those educational gambling classes could actually reduce the frequency of these behaviors. Another danger would be that it could lead to a more widespread gambling addiction. According to North American Foundation of Gambling in 2019, over 10 million people in the US have some sort of gambling addiction. To combat this though, government regulation would provide the educational background, the economic protections, and the services needed to prevent, manage, and treat this ongoing gambling addiction. Hopefully, in this speech, you've been informed more about why the legalization and regulation of gambling among states would actually benefit the country as a whole rather than hurt it. And in conclusion, states should increase more gambling because it leads to an increase in revenue, greater ethical practice, and a way for people to interact and connect with one another on a deeper level. Now, if you decide that states should increase and legalize gambling, I encourage you to talk to your local government and your residents to help persuade them that this could actually be beneficial to the state as a whole. As stated, gambling has numerous benefits that I actually believe outweigh the costs of the illegalization of it. According to a report from the Oxford Economics in 2017, they mentioned that if each state legalized gambling, they would generate a total of $13 million. That's serious money. Imagine what your state could do with those profits. Thank you.